What's up, y'all? My name's Tim Ream. I'm here today on the 102nd day of the spring cut. Gonna be doing back today. Gonna mix it up just a little bit. I feel like I've been really lat intensive for the last couple months with my back workouts, and so I feel like I've kind of gotten that body part where I want it to be as far as the lats go. And I'm gonna start focusing more on the thickness and the center of the back and trap area. So I'm going to start putting my row movements at the very beginning of the workout, and then I'm going to move into the lat portions with pull downs and pullovers and all that stuff. So I have had it backwards. Basically, I've been doing the lats first and then the rows, but I'm going to jumble that up today. Also going to put a couple different variations in there on the single arm movements. I'm going to be doing them underhanded, almost like you would do with like a bent over row. But this is going to be a seated row. I'm just going to test out what I think the row movements will be and the pull down movements will be with an underhanded, like palms up grip on the single arm pull downs and all that stuff. So just to, experiment with the movement. It's going to be a new kind of progression and layout of how these exercises are all laid out for the back day today. So it's going to be a little bit experimental, and yeah, we're just going to get right into it. I'm going to start out with the bent over rows on the machine just to kind of get the traps firing a little bit too, and then right into the center of the back and the lower traps. I don't even know what that muscle is called, but that being said, I want to get it kind of pre-exhausted before I go into the main heavy row movements, and so that's kind of the thinking behind it.
So we're gonna get better today instead of talking shit. So you gotta get better. I know you all wanted to talk shit. For those of you who just started listening, this is Q&AF, and this is a Q&A show. You can submit your questions that we answer on the show. That's where we get the questions for the show. You can submit them to us a few different ways. The first way is, guys, email those questions in to ask@andyfrisella.com. And if you don't know, that's DJ, all children. And the second way that you can submit these questions is if you go on YouTube and you go to the Andy Frisella YouTube channel, we do post the full-length show.
So I definitely suggest if you've got like a weak body part, so with my shoulders, obviously I've done a lot of pressing movements over the years, so my front and side delts aren't too bad, but my rear delts are definitely underdeveloped. So if you're trying to bring up, say, a weak part, then I suggest prioritizing it by putting it at the very beginning of your workout. So that's kind of the reason why I'm going to work on more of the row movements first, because I'm trying to bring up the center of that back, where I've had the lat movements really heavily prioritized in my routine. Through doing all this filming and everything, looking back on the footage, I'm starting to see that I want to bring the trap area up and then the center of the back. Unfortunately, I don't know what that muscle's called. It's the one, it's like right in here, not in your lat. So basically, I'm putting those at the beginning of the movement. I just feel like it's just better to kind of pre-exhaust those, and it gets it more accentuated, and it's worked more basically as you progress to all the other exercises in the workout. So I suggest if you find out it's the hamstrings that are, lacking, then start doing those before any of your other exercises on a quad day or your leg day or whatever, to give it that much more work. So, just starting off with the body part you're wanting to actually bring up right off the bat within your workout, because if you save it till the end, then you might have actually kind of just gassed yourself the entire damn time. And by the time you get to that body part, you pretty much already tapped yourself out. So if you can give it, your all in the beginning, then you at least know you did everything you can for it and you prioritized it. So gonna hit like 2 or 3 warm-up sets with this, progressively working the weight up into a heavy set to failure, and then we'll start moving into the other exercises.
When I say high-performing individuals, I mean people who aspire to more, people who are out building shit, people who are doing things, people who, you may not be a multi-millionaire, you may just be starting out, but you're still a high-performing person, you're working too. I feel like we've grown in such an environment over the last decade, really about the last 15 years, for entrepreneurship. Wow, what about 2008? 2008 was one of the best times to build a business there ever was. I'm sure a lot of people lost shit.
And I used to do bent over rows right? And I actually like a palms up grip with bent rows. I feel like you can get a better contraction with it, but I feel like that it's more of an ego movement for me. I feel like I just swing the weight a lot more. I don't feel like it really focuses on the center of the back like I would like it to. Whereas I know this is kind of a bent over row type movement. You don't have to stabilize it. You can get more focused with it because it's in a fixed path with the machine. And you can just kind of get in a groove and rocking motion with it. And I feel like it's more of a concentrated exercise rather than maybe an ego movement where I would just be kind of swinging the weight and it's not really focused. So I like it better on a machine if I am going to do it. And I would like to do it with the palms up, but this particular machine is so wide that it's just an unnatural angle for the elbows and biceps and shoulders. So I've just kind of got to work with what I've got, but I would typically like an underhanded grip with the bent over rows. All right, we'll start moving up in weight a little bit here. This movement here isn't a max out, like really heavy movement. It's really just to kind of get really good and pre-exhausted for whenever I move into the main movements. So this is going to be kind of a lighter weight type of exercise that I'm doing, but really just to get everything firing in your back, really good pre-exhausted feeler sets and just blood in the muscle, all that stuff. So
Not super overweight, not fucking lazy, not fucking broke, not perpetually sick. You're working to not be any of these things that they want us to be so that we become dependent on this structure and system. Those are simple decisions that we make throughout our day that can align right in with building whatever it is we're building, right? For sure. That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about, and then, things like going to your local school board meetings, or going to your local civic meetings. We're not talking about taking all of your focus from over here to over here. We're talking about, we're talking about being aware of this and then making the adjustments accordingly. Maybe stop spending your money with people who propagate this fucking crazy ass far fucking fetch bullshit.
and I'm trying to get as stretched out as I possibly can. Get everything to the full extension as you possibly can. And there's actually a lot of research now that shows that in the stretch part of the movement, pretty much any movement that you do is going to get the most activation on the muscle. It's actually responsible for a lot of the muscle building qualities. Where a lot of us have thought it's in the kind of the contracted position, it's actually in the fully extended where the muscle fibers are really stretching out. So I've been spending a lot more time in that movement. And plus, I didn't really need science to tell me that. You can just feel it, man. If you start doing these movements and just forget about the form they tell you need to have, some of it's good, but really it's just you can't tell me that's not activating the shit out of your back, dude. So you kind of got to play around with these movements. And it just, in the fully stretched position, it's good to get contracted, but I don't feel like you get as much activation as you do whenever you're in that stretched position there. All right, we're going to go kind of with the heavier movement here. It's going to be, I'm going to take this into the max here. That was my heavy set to failure. Okay, so you're good and activated with that. Another reason I kind of started off with that movement is because I want to bring my traps up too, and it's kind of got the traps activated as well. I kind of wanted to get those fired and in the mix, so whenever I move into the other movements, those are get some activation as well too. Now that I'm kind of warmed up on this, I'm going to start moving into these exercises pretty frequently here, pretty fast, just to keep that burn going the entire time. And pretty much just drive home all the pre-exhaustion that we just did.
But here's, by the way, just so you know, most of my content, if not all of it, is going to be on my podcast and then on this little private platform for you guys to launch through with MSCO project. I'm probably done.
All right. I've got 7 exercises. I've got 3 for the thickness and then 4 for lats. So I've still got more lat movements in there, but I was only doing 2 row movements. Just here lately, I've kind of been throwing the bent over rows in the mix too, but now that I'm starting off with the rows for thickness, I'm still inching in a direction where I'm starting to prioritize them more and more. If I find some other exercises where I think are really good row movements, I might start throwing them in there, but really 7 exercises for back is about the cutoff for me. So if I do add any more in there, I'm going to have to start taking away from the lat movements. And I really like the ones that I do for lat, so unless it's super, super beneficial, then I won't be doing too much changes to that. Because I still want to bring up my wings and all that too, but it is what it is. Just kind of thinking out loud. My reasoning and everything behind why I do what I do in here. And these, there is volume on these movements here. And there is stimulation, so it is a little bit of an accumulation on your resources, a drain on your resources. So I'm not trying to make these working sets. This is all for activation, feeler sets, and really just to build up to that. By the time I get to that 1 set to failure, that I've really got a good exhaustion going, and I'm focused, so whenever I actually do that set to failure, I can really fucking drive it home because my mind's in the muscle, the pump's there, and I feel like I can really take it to failure better if I pre-exhausted it a little bit. So these aren't actual working sets, even though they do have a little bit of a fatigue on your system. So still do want to try to keep your warm-up sets lower in number, just for the overall systemic fatigue factor, and you know your recovery ability and how many resources your actual system does have. But just trying to say that these are actual not working sets. These are just kind of feeler, good warm-up sets, and I'm pyramiding up until that 1 set to failure, boom. And so I've been working my way up to this set right here. I have a lot of weight changing going on, back and forth from one machine to the next. Just is what it is with the setup I got here. Let me go as heavy as I possibly can here today. Okay, and if you think about it, talking about proper form versus non-proper form, if I can do 8 or 10 with proper form, and then I just rack the weight, can you really say that you went past your body's previous limitation? Because going past your body's previous limitation is what stimulates your growth. So it makes more sense to me that you would keep as good a form as you possibly can until you get to the point where you can't. And then you drive home past the point of failure with sloppy reps if you've got to. Just to get that, extra factor in there that your body hasn't encountered before. So I'm for breaking proper form, especially at the end. Because if you can just do 10 and rack it, you're not ever going past your body's limitations. So I feel like you almost have to throw those partials in there. So you gotta think about it. You've already fatigued the muscle. And if you're doing partials, like you still got stress on that muscle, so it's still working. If it's still contracting and stretching and you're flexing, then you're still activating that muscle. So I'm a big believer in doing partials. And if you got to break form to get those few extra ones, fucking do it. In my book, that's fair game. But okay, we're gonna move into our single arm movements here. Now, I was going to do that as an underhanded movement, but as soon as I tried it, I knew it wasn't going to fly. Not with the weight that I had on the bar. If I dropped some weight, I'm sure I could do that, but in the name of pushing more weight and really driving home and getting a lot of weight on the traps in the center of that back, I abandoned the movement in the name of just all out heavy weight and stress on the muscle there. So might be something I'll bring into the mix later. Still gonna try it with the pull downs. I'm gonna try an underhanded thing instead of over. But if that doesn't, I don't feel like that has maximum stimulation there, I'll abandon it too. So I think if I drop the weight, I could probably figure it out over, you know, a couple days of working out, get the movement down and squeeze and everything right, but I'm not gonna do it this time. All right, so we're moving into the lat movements now. This is gonna be the typical progression you guys have always seen. I've just usually started out with this, right? And the row stuff that I just did was behind it. Now, I'm going into a cable pull over to get the lats firing good, get them pre-exhausted so we can go over to the regular pull down movements. They'll be more accentuated if I do this first on the lats, so that's why I do that.
When you have a situation where, because of, and this is why I think people should fucking start living in real life and building shit in real life. Not only do the numbers and the data say so, I believe people in general, in mass, are starting to realize that this technology is not fucking how we're supposed to spend our lives. I believe people are starting to realize that. Yeah. I see it in the numbers and the data of the companies I'm involved with. People are starting to
I would typically do more warm-up sets. I'd usually do about 3 warm-ups, get into a heavy set on this, but I've already warmed up with those other row movements. Definitely, there's obviously some activation in the lats while you're doing the row movements too, so I've already got a little bit of a pre-exhaustion factor with the lat movements. And on the lat muscles, so I'm not gonna do near as many working sets. I'm just listening to, or warm-up sets. I'm just listening to my body, how it feels, and I can definitely feel some already good fatigue on there, so maybe do this one warm-up set and then heavy set to failure and then move right into the other ones. Probably won't be near as many warm-up sets with all the other exercises too. I tell people, if you're already warmed up with the first couple exercises, why are you going to keep hitting warm-up sets? You're just taking away from your recovery ability and overloading your system. So once you get warmed up on those other exercises that follow, the faster you can get into your maxes and your heavy sets to failure, I feel like the best. So keeping that volume low, keeping the time brief and infrequent, and just maximal stress when you are doing it.
what you're believing and what you're not believing. Because the internet has this way of making us all feel alone, which by the way is intentional. If you go read the fucking Chaos Machine explains this,
All right, not gonna go up too crazy in weight here, but it's just like, I don't know, 40 pounds. And this is like, this ain't really a bulk movement. This is kind of more of a warm-up type of pre-exhaustion type movement. Some people might use it, and it'd be like a pre-exhaustion or kind of warm-up movement or a finisher movement. Kind of put the icing on the cake. After you've done all the lats, then kind of do this just to kind of drive them home. But basically it's not a bulk movement, and it really never will be a bulk movement, because unless you can figure out a way to be seated while you're doing it, then it's just leverage, dude. If I'm 155 pounds, then ideally, if I got 155 pounds on the stack, then it's gonna start pulling me off my feet. So, you know, if you're gonna try to get into movements where you're doing more than your body weight, this ain't the one. Unless you got something to fix you in where you're seated and strapped to a seat, it ain't happening. It's just the mechanics and nature of the actual movement itself. And the reason I bring that up is because as I lose weight for the spring cut, I'm noticing I can't do as much weight on the back end before it starts pulling me off my feet. And if it's pulling you off your feet while you're doing the movement, then how good of a contraction can you really be getting? Because now you're not just wasting energy on and focusing your energy on the lats. You now are trying to stabilize it and counter the weight by putting your ass out. So kind of got a little bit of wasted movement in that motion, trying to fight, not being pulled off your feet. So just like I said, it's one of those movements, not a bulk movement. It's a starter or a finishing type movement. All right, this will be our set to failure here. Too heavy.
I tell you what, dude, like when I go to dinner with someone and we're on social the whole time, I won't go to dinner with them ever. Ever again. Like if I go to dinner with you, like this is fair warning. You guys sit down for dinner and you're checking your social media and your shit on your phone, and you're sitting with me, I won't go out with you ever again. Not only that, I won't pick up the phone and fucking call. I don't do it. I'm so over it.
And with that, I'm really accentuating that stretch part of the movement, trying to kind of pause in that position, and then just trying to drive the elbows down to my side while I'm flexing and squeezing the whole part of that movement. Am I able to do it 100% of the time? Not always, but try to do it the best I can. All right, move into our other movements here.
Meaning like how they listen to us. You know, you motherfuckers like people like to laugh. Oh, dude, you ain't talking about that. They should have done that. That's not funny. They listen to everything you fucking say, bro. These people have gained access to every conversation between human beings on the fucking planet without any regulation. And there's not a person listening to this show that thinks that's okay or not a violation. We deserve our own fucking lives.
I'm officially at 153.5 pounds, 153.6 whenever I weighed myself, not last night but the night before. So in this 100 days that I went through, I started at 179 pounds, so it's basically what, like 23 or 24 pounds, well 26 pounds roughly. So I don't know what that adds up to per day. I know I've pretty much kept on pace with losing about 1 or 2% of my body fat per week. So that's kind of the recommended cutting aspect, is about 1 to 2% a week. Or 2% might be high. I think 2% is high. Yeah, to make more sense that if you're 200 pounds, then you could idealistically lose 2 pounds a week pretty easily, just with a caloric deficit of 750 calories and then maybe like 45 minutes of walking a day. Just that, you'll lose 2 pounds a week. So that's about the idealistic, maintainable pace. Anything more than that, you risk losing muscle, but you also risk just starting out strong, but then just dropping off. So if you're looking to do it for a long period of time, just doing it at an even pace and just knowing that time is just going to have to play its part in it, and you just have to be okay with it. All right, heavy set to failure here. Yeah, 2 more movements after this and we'll be done. Oh, I got a funny comment that I'm gonna address. A funny. I had a real smart person in the comments. Okay, so usually whenever you have good reason for what you're doing, you'll lead with your reasons. And if they're logical, then you'll be willing to present that. So you've actually got understanding under what you're doing. If you open up with insults, you already know the shit you got for doing what you're doing doesn't make sense, or you would present that to begin with. And I was talking about how natural bodybuilders and these influencers on steroids, you have to have 2 different training methods as a natural versus enhanced. As a natural, you can't use their training methods or you'll just overtrain because they've got more recovery ability. And somebody, a real genius, piped up in the comments is like, just so you know, I think you're just trying to justify doing less work. And I think it's a cop-out. So he tried to insult me to get me to back down off of my position, which is the last ditch attempt. And the thing is, you think I made a fucking 20-minute video explaining systemic fatigue, systemic resources in between enhanced and naturals for me to just justify me not wanting to do more work? That doesn't even make any fucking sense. And of course, whenever I commented, oh yeah, that's exactly why I made the video, he didn't have anything else to say because he felt stupid. But it was just a dumb fucking comment. Alright, we're gonna hit our last set to failure with close grip pull downs. Not gonna do any warm-up sets. We're good and warm as it is. Motherfucker, dude. I usually have these movements at the beginning, like I've already said. I can usually do more reps for more weight. So obviously I'm, just 2 or 3 exercises in rather than, 6 or 7. So I can definitely feel that I can't hit as heavy a weights for as many reps just because I've got all that work that I've already done before this. So probably just gonna kind of drop weight on this next exercise just to make sure I kind of drive home all the work we just did with a good finishing movement, which is just gonna be the single arm pull downs. I mean, if you're only doing an exercise for back once a week, yes, I know I've hit it, but there's a difference in I did 8 reps to failure, and I walk out of here and I'm not really feeling very pumped versus, okay, I've fatigued the shit out of the muscle and I've taken it to failure. I like feeling pumped, full, got a good burn, and I went to failure whenever I leave, or else I don't feel like I got everything out of it that I could have. And also your burn and the pump. Some people say you can't go off the pump, but I say that there's a ratio in there where if you don't feel pumped and a burn where you're trying to work out at, like if I'm doing chest and I feel it in my shoulders, probably not hitting chest, so I feel like your pump and the burn is a direct indication of stimulation of that muscle. So you should be able to tell if you've isolated it good enough. And number 1 indication for me is the burn. Drop some weight here and I'm gonna be really cautious with my concentric and eccentric movements, which is your positive and negative. and just really look to get the most out of this movement, all the way up and all the way down that I can, as a good finishing movement here.
You know, for this gentleman, that's great. 4 years, got your thing. That's awesome. Celebrate it, bro. Make it a big moment in your life. But now let's set something new and squat for that. Question number 2. Okay. And you are set back 24 years. 0 knowledge. No contact, no resources, no finishers, no social media, no email list, no dedicated employees, nothing to fall back on. All you have is the knowledge that you have in your brain currently. What's your first move and how do you get it? Well, I would obviously probably take advantage of the free technology. First. I have a pretty good way of certain things. People seem to like it for a long time. So I would probably pick up my phone and I would talk some shit. That's what I would do. It's effective viewers doing a lot for a living. And one of the best reasons that I feel like I've been able to do some things in real life is because for the first 10, 12 years we were so fucking broke that I had to get creative. And I understood guerrilla marketing techniques. I understood how to create buzz when there was no buzz. I understood how to meet customers when there were no customers. And those are skills that you can't replace. You know, I don't really think I would do too much different in terms of what I did in reality, except for how to implement technology.
Alright, that was the 102nd day of the spring cut. Had about 43 minutes on that whole progression there. It's exactly where I like to be. 45 to 50 minutes of hard, intense workouts and exercises. There's exercises within an overall workout for back, legs, whatever. So I like to be at heavy, intense, brief, short periods of time under that pressure, under the weight, but just all out maximum intensity for the time that I am. Brief and infrequent workouts. That being said, that was the back workout. Going to be back tomorrow with you guys on shoulders and triceps. That being said, I really appreciate you guys who are following along with me, engaging with me in the comments. If you guys like the way that I take you through the workouts and the way I break them down, I just ask you to please share, like, and subscribe. If you guys don't like it, that's cool too. We're part as friends. I'm going to start extending some of my knowledge to you guys. So I've got my email in the bottom of the About section in my YouTube page. You can get a hold of me there or just in the comments on the videos. If you guys are wanting to get your macros figured out, figure out how to bulk, cut, get a good exercise routine and regimen, just reach out to me in the comments or in the email. So I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow for shoulders. And this was day 102. All right, guys, see ya.